Before you had a name, before you had ever seen light, you were already learning to recognize one specific human voice out of every voice on Earth. And in a few minutes, you're going to find out that your body still remembers that, even though you never will. Here's the direct answer first, so you're not left wondering. Why can't anyone remember being in the womb, or even their first 2 or 3 years of life? It's not because nothing happened in there. It's because the part of your brain responsible for storing conscious, retrievable memories, called the hippocampus, isn't finished being built yet, and won't be for years after you're born. You weren't unconscious for 9 months. You were simply running on hardware that had no functioning save button. But that answer only opens the door. What's actually happening behind it is far stranger, and it starts with an experiment involving 2 newborn babies and a pair of headphones. In 1980, researchers Anthony DeCasper and William Fifer published a study in the journal Science that changed how scientists understood the unborn brain. They took newborns, some barely a day old, and gave them a special pacifier wired to a recording. If the babies sucked one way, they'd hear a recording of their own mother's voice. If they sucked a different way, they'd hear a stranger's voice instead. Within minutes, the newborns figured out the pattern and consistently chose to work harder, sucking in the specific rhythm that would summon their mother's voice. These babies had been alive, breathing air, for less than 24 hours. And yet somehow, they already knew exactly which voice belonged to them. That's not a coincidence. That's evidence. Sound travels through the amniotic fluid surrounding a developing baby, muffled but audible, and a mother's voice, amplified from the inside by her own body, becomes one of the most repeated sounds a fetus ever hears. By the 3rd trimester, the auditory system is developed enough to actually learn from that repetition. And it doesn't stop at voices. In 1988, researcher Peter Hepper at Queen's University Belfast ran a study that sounds almost too strange to be real. Pregnant women who regularly watched a specific television soap opera, an Australian drama called Neighbours, gave birth to bobbies who, shortly after birth, grew visibly calmer and more alert specifically when that show's theme tune played. Not music in general. That exact theme song, heard dozens of times through a womb wall, months before these bobbies had ever opened their eyes. So here's the question that should be bothering you right now. If a fetus can learn a television theme song well enough to recognize it after birth, why can't you remember a single second of any of it? Stay with that question, because the answer involves something that sounds more like biological sabotage than simple forgetting. In 2014, neuroscientists Paul Frankland and Sheena Josselyn at the University of Toronto published a study in Science that reframed the entire mystery. They found that infant brains generate new neurons in the hippocampus at an extraordinarily high rate, a process called neurogenesis. You'd think more new brain cells would mean better memory. It's the opposite. Frankland and Josselyn discovered that this flood of new neurons actually overwrites and destabilizes the very memory circuits an infant brain is trying to build, essentially bulldozing old connections to make room for new construction that never stops happening fast enough to let anything settle. The infant brain isn't failing to save memories. It's actively demolishing them before they can be filed away for good. This phenomenon has a name, and it's older than you'd expect. Sigmund Freud coined the term infantile amnesia in the early 20th century, decades before anyone had the tools to explain why it happened. Freud had his own theories about repression that didn't hold up scientifically, but the term stuck because the mystery itself never went away. Every single human being across every culture on Earth hits the same wall. Nobody remembers being born. Almost nobody remembers being 2. It gets even stranger when you realize infants can absolutely learn and briefly hold onto memories, just not permanently. Psychologist Carolyn Rovee-Collier spent much of her career studying exactly this, using a surprisingly simple setup. She'd tie a ribbon from a baby's ankle to a mobile hanging above their crib, and within minutes, infants as young as 2 or 3 months old learned to kick their legs to make the mobile spin. Weeks later, when researchers reattached the ribbon, many of these same bobbies immediately started kicking again, remembering a connection they had learned to make long before. So infants can form memories. They can even retain them for a short while. What they can't do according to Rovee-Collier's research, is convert that memory into the kind of long-term, narrative, retrievable memory an adult brain relies on, the kind you could ever consciously revisit years later. Here's where it gets personal. The hippocampus doesn't finish its early wiring until roughly age 3 or 4, and even then, it takes years longer to fully mature into the memory system adults rely on. That means every experience you had, every face, every lullaby, every single moment of your own infancy was recorded onto a system that was still under active construction, tearing down its own foundations even as it tried to build them. Somewhere in there, your mother's voice was one of the very first things that system ever tried and failed to permanently keep. So think about that womb again. 9 entire months of sound, rhythm, warmth, and a heartbeat that was never once silent. 9 months your body clearly learned from, responded to, and adapted around. And not 1 second of it exists anywhere you can access. Not because it didn't matter, because the machine built to hold on to it hadn't finished being built. There's something strangely moving about that, if you actually sit with it. You spent the first, most vulnerable stretch of your entire existence being shaped by a voice, a rhythm, a world you will never consciously recall, no matter how hard you try. And yet that voice still shaped you. Somewhere in the structure of your nervous system, the echo of those 9 months is still sitting there, quietly, permanently, completely unremembered. You didn't lose those 9 months. You never had the ability to keep them in the first place. And maybe that's the strangest part of being human. The most formative months of your entire life happened to someone who existed before you had any way of knowing they were you at all. Somewhere, right now, there's a person who spent 9 months listening to you before you'd even taken a single breath. And no matter how hard either of you tries, neither of you will ever be able to hand that memory back.